It was a Sunday afternoon. My mom and I were headed home. Two teenagers stopped us. They each had a knife. And before we knew what was happening, one had a knife at my throat and the other aimed his knife toward my mother's stomach. Home was the housing projects in New York City on the Lower East Side. I was 7 years old. This mugging happened in a cold steel elevator that smelled like ammonia and felt like a prison cell. We couldn't escape. The boys were Heiren in Mandarin, or black people, and in my language, African Americans could also be called Hei Gui, translated literally as black demons. This happened a long time ago, and now it makes sense why I don't like elevators. But if I replace the word elevators with black people, then it gets really uncomfortable. Judgment, my fear becomes racism. But why did they pick us? Because we're Chinese, shy and quiet? It's the classic stereotype. Black kids stealing from a quiet Chinese family? Well, that stereotype was actually true. We never talked about this, not to the police, not at church. I have never talked about this until now. Over the next formative decade of my childhood, we lived one stereotype after another. I watched my mom battle the stereotype of being the poor Chinese immigrant working in the sweatshop. And that made me want to be the good Chinese daughter, to prove that she mattered. I was good in math and science, got an engineering degree at an Ivy League school. Why? Because I wanted to make money. Money was going to be the answer to my racism issue. My American dream was to show that Chinese people could be strong, smart, and rich. I became the banker on Wall Street at the age of 20, and then a corporate lawyer. And before I knew it, I was the perfect next-gen Chinese stereotype. Yet, I felt far from being the model minority, never seeing Chinese businesswomen like me represented in the media, on Wall Street, or as partners in law firms. I somehow had trapped myself yet in another elevator. I discovered that shiny elevators that smelled more like Armani than ammonia were actually scarier than the ones in the projects. I was so conflicted and confused by these competing stereotypes. And I thought to myself, how can I break this cycle and somehow still make good money? So I saw myself and tried to be the storyteller. And then I thought of the possibility of empowering poor kids, who are the most misrepresented in the media, to be the new storytellers. Then I thought of the possibility of taking these storytelling skills and bringing them into the workplace, into careers in the creative industry that influence media, entertainment, and the shaping of our stereotypes every day. Then I thought about the possibility of taking authentic storytelling and making it into a business to somehow make this all sustainable. Seriously, what if I could start a business to help to end racism? So I designed a business that has both an academy that teaches filmmaking to underserved youth and a production studio that has corporate and socially responsible clients to produce professional media. An example of what we've done is we produced 50 videos in 50 weeks for Super Bowl 50. about 50 nonprofits doing amazing work, while hiring and training on the job 25 interns. I'd like to introduce to you one of our graduates, Iman Rodney.
Today at Baycap, my voice was heard. My voice was heard!
You could say, how's it going to Iman, because he's in the audience. Iman started with us when he was 13, probably around the age of the kids who mugged us. Iman still lives in one of the poorest parts of San Francisco, Bayview Hunters Point. And like many of his peers, Iman did not grow up with computers and tablets at home, even though we're at the epicenter of technology and innovation. But he did grow up with asthma because his home was built in a toxic waste dump. What Iman taught me over the last 10 years is how much we have in common. Iman was very aware that he was an outsider. Race affects him every day. Iman told me, especially when I make a mistake, it feels like I'm representing all African Americans at my workplace, at school, anywhere. Me making this mistake may cost someone else not to get this opportunity. What an incredible responsibility for Iman to feel that he has to break every person's stereotype of him, and on behalf of all African Americans. Iman went from being a statistic and academically underperforming Black youth to finding his voice and passion as a filmmaker. Learning to be a storyteller at such a young age gave him the power to see the value of his own story and how his story could affect other people's story, or even their pocketbooks. At the age of 19, my business hired and trained Iman on the job. Iman created a video for one of our clients about the asthma and environmental hazards that he grew up with, which inspired funding opportunities for the health and wellness of his own community. So even as a teenager, Iman's authentic story became the positive catalyst for social change. For the last 3 years, Iman would be proud to share with you that he's been a videographer for the San Francisco Giants. Woo! Their human resources manager recently asked me, how do we get more Imans? Yes. Which means I'm the lucky one to get photos of Iman holding a couple of Emmys in his hands and text messages that say, Mama Villy, these are not my Emmys yet. But hopefully someday I will win one of my own. Go Iman. This is just the beginning. Iman is one of 150 young, diverse storytellers that we have hired and trained on the job, who are out there working in the creative industries. My mom, remember her? She hoped that her legacy would include a couple of Chinese grandchildren. Before she died, she took a storytelling class with us, met Iman, and somewhere along the way, not only did she realize that her story mattered, but that she was the grandmother of thousands of kids. Little Chinese girls like me, Black, Latino, white, multiracial, amazing, talented storytellers. Iman and these kids changed my mom's story. Baycat is this crazy business I started. Obviously, racism is deeply rooted in our history, our politics, media, our language. But I believe if we can empower more diverse kids to take that narrative and to change it, we will break hold of these ugly roots. Our youth songwriters wrote, "It's hard to fight a fear that always fights back. It feels like a modern-day war. Haven't we been here before?" Yes, we have been here before. I certainly have. I was scared of Black people. I wasn't proud to be Chinese. I wished I was a man. Chinese people are quiet. No, I won't be. I am a storyteller. Let's keep changing the storytellers. I want racism to end. Let's make it a business, one story at a time.